What if the Soviet Union didn't collapse in 1991? What if, despite Cold War tensions, nuclear standoffs, and internal decay, the USSR didn't just survive, but thrived? And not for 70 years, but for 1,000 years of central planning, red banners, and Soviet satellites in orbit. This isn't just an alternate history, it's a complete rewrite of our modern world. Because if the USSR lasted a millennium, nothing, and I mean nothing, about your life today would look the same. Let's imagine what that world would look like. Chapter 1, 1991, the collapse that never happened. In our timeline, 1991 was the year the Soviet Empire crumbled under its own weight. Economic stagnation, nationalist uprisings, a failed coup, and Gorbachev's dream of reform disintegrated overnight. But in this alternate timeline, that moment never came. Instead, the 1991 coup attempt succeeds. Hardliners remove Gorbachev, crush Yeltsin's protests, and institute a brutal crackdown across the republics. The KGB expands into a near-omnipotent force. Reformists vanish, some into gulags, others into unmarked graves, and just like that, the USSR stabilizes. Not with freedom, but with fear. The West watches in horror. But there's no Berlin Wall to cheer about. The Iron Curtain stays up, and the Cold War doesn't end. It deepens. Chapter 2, 2000s, a Soviet Renaissance. The Red Reboot. By the 2000s, the Soviet Union is in the middle of a rebrand. No more gray factories and endless breadlines. Now, it's bioengineering, AI surveillance, and red Silicon Valley. Why? Because the Soviets reverse engineer Western tech at a terrifying pace. From stolen Microsoft code to cloned semiconductors, the USSR becomes a tech superpower, driven not by capitalism but by state-driven innovation. Instead of Apple, think Comrade OS. Instead of Elon Musk, it's Yuri Volkov putting Soviet boots on Mars. And thanks to cheap oil, forced labor, and complete control of media, the economy roars forward. The world starts calling it the Red Dragon, a new Cold War competitor, not just militarily, but digitally. Every citizen is tracked by facial recognition. Dissent is suppressed before it starts. And the Soviet internet? A locked-down, firewalled alternate web, completely separate from the global one. Chapter 3, Global Dominoes Fall. When red becomes the default. Here's where things start to get really weird. Because if the USSR remains strong, NATO fractures. America, tired of constant proxy wars and cyber attacks, pulls back from Europe. And when the European Union tries to stand on its own, guess what happens? The USSR funds populist parties across the continent. Hungary, Poland, even parts of Italy and France turn toward Eurasian socialism. And in 2025, Berlin elects its first pro-Soviet chancellor. The Middle East? Soviet-friendly regimes rule Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Afghanistan becomes a Soviet client state. Latin America shifts red too. Cuba never isolates. Venezuela flourishes under Soviet aid, and even Brazil leans east. It's not just a Cold War anymore. It's a global cultural war between capitalist individualism and collectivist obedience. Chapter 4, The Red Moon Rises. Space as a battlefield. In this world, space isn't just about exploration. It's the new Iron Curtain. By 2030, the USSR establishes the first lunar military base. They call it Zvezda 1, the Red Star. And they're not done. Soviet satellites jam American GPS systems. Spy telescopes monitor Earth from orbit. And when the US unveils its Space Force, the USSR mocks it as 20 years too late. But it's not just about rockets. Soviet scientists begin working on geoengineering, climate control from space, cloud seeding over enemy crops, solar mirrors to redirect heat waves. The weather becomes a weapon, and the worst part? No one can prove they're doing it. Chapter 5, Culture in a Red World. What if Hollywood lost? Ever wonder what pop culture would look like if America lost its global influence? In this world, Soviet media floods the planet. Instead of Netflix, people binge on Sovkino Plus dramas, tales of hero engineers, noble factory workers, and righteous KGB agents, all with sweeping orchestras, tragic endings, and government approval. Hollywood, blacklisted. In many parts of the world, American movies are contraband, bootlegged in basements and whispered about like forbidden fruit. And the Olympics? They're no longer a feel-good global event. They're war by other means. Gold medals are matters of national pride, and failure is punished. Even music isn't safe. Imagine pop charts filled with haunting Soviet ballads, patriotic anthems, and folk techno fusion from the Ural Mountains. Freedom of expression? Only if it serves the state. Chapter 6. The Price of Eternal Order, the Hidden Decay. But let's pause for a moment because not everything is perfect behind the red curtain. A 1,000-year empire demands total control, and that control comes with a cost. In 2075, whispers of dissent start to rise in Central Asia. Food shortages hit Novosibirsk, climate disasters ravage eastern Ukraine. And in Moscow, a new underground art movement starts using AI-generated graffiti to protest the regime. But the KGB, now called the Department of Global Stability, strikes fast. They erase digital footprints. They rewrite history textbooks in real time. Your grandfather was a dissident? Now he never existed. Your mother attended a protest? The footage is deep-faked. She was home, loyal, obedient. Even memory becomes a tool of the state. But repression has limits, because no matter how many eyes the regime has, people remember. Chapter 7. The Red Religion. When ideology becomes worship. By the 2100s, the USSR isn't just a government, it's a civilization. Children don't learn math before they memorize the 5-year plans. New holidays commemorate Lenin's spiritual return in AI form, and cyber churches beam state sermons directly into VR headsets. Marxism isn't theory anymore, it's scripture. And just like any religion, heretics are burned, not with fire, but with social deletion. Your bank account vanishes. Your biometric ID stops working. Your face no longer opens doors. You are unpersoned. But here's the twist. Some people love it, because for all the oppression, the USSR delivers something capitalism couldn't. Purpose. You are part of something eternal. You matter because you build the machine. And in a world of loneliness and chaos, that's seductive. Chapter 8. The Final Form, USSR Year 1000. The Machine That Replaced Man. We've arrived at the year 2991, the 1000th year of Soviet rule. Is the USSR still human? Barely. By now, the state is run by a post-organic intelligence known only as the Central Plan. It manages 11 billion citizens across Earth, Mars, Europa, and lunar colonies. No money, no voting, no privacy, just optimal distribution, emotional regulation, and genetic standardization. You don't pick your job, your neural scans do. Love is assigned by compatibility score. Children are gestated in state biopods. And history? History is a simulation. You live inside a curated past, where the USSR never had flaws, never lost battles, never made mistakes. It is perfect. It always was. But under the surface, a glitch spreads, a memory, a feeling. A forbidden question whispered between minds. What if we weren't meant to last forever? The 1,000-year red dream. So what would the world look like if the Soviet Union lasted 1,000 years? It would be powerful, terrifying, orderly, lonely, impressive, dehumanizing. It would bring structure to chaos and silence to rebellion. It would reach the stars and forget what it meant to be human. Because even the strongest empire, if it never falls, eventually forgets why it rose in the first place. And that, perhaps, is the real tragedy of an eternal USSR. Not that it ruled the world, but that no one remembered a time before it did.